Jason, the youngest. Jason.
What's up? All right, guys. If you're on the Zoom, guys, just know, I mean, we are doing this training both on the Zoom and we have agents here. So some of the things, does everybody have a contract?
Yeah.
All right, cool. For whatever reason, guys, if you don't hear me well on the chat, just let me know.
Yes.
And yeah, make sure you guys mute yourself too, please.
¿Que me escuchan?
Sí.
Después me tengo que bajar. No, no, no me lo voy a
Make sure you're
Pónmelo
muted.
en el audífono.
All right, guys. So I wanted to do this training, super important training, guys. I know everybody's been talking about the new contract and all these things and all these changes that are happening. It's honestly not a huge deal. It is a deal when it comes to the financing part. We do have to talk about that, but there's not as many changes as like, there are a lot of changes, but the way I look at it is a lot of, changes that are not that relevant. One thing though, you guys do want to know is being in this industry, oh, sorry, I keep getting people. You're not getting the people when they jump in? No. That's okay. That's fine. Let me see, actually, so I'm gonna do something. Give me 1 second, guys. Yeah, I'm gonna make you the host. So keep an eye on the people trying to jump on in the chat. Oh, you're saying maybe mute on my end? All right, guys. So make sure everybody's muted and everything. So guys, when I started doing real estate, this contract was like 8 pages. And now it's pretty much, we're like at the end of the page 12. So every few years, guys, they keep adding stuff as the industry changes, as situations happens, lawsuits happen, everybody gets themselves into these weird situations. They're like, okay, we need to make that change. For example, one of the big changes in the contract, it's not a huge change, and it probably hopefully will never apply again. But the force majeure, now they added pandemics, like, oh, okay, well, if something's called a pandemic, that's technically, like force majeure. And we'll get into that stuff. But that's what we're going to go over today, guys. 2 things. I want to go over the contracts. I'm going to go over the changes I feel are the most important. And then we're going to dive like very deep into the financing part, because I feel like that's the part where everybody gets a little confused. That's the part where you have to really know how to maneuver that part. Again, for your buyers, to make sure you're protecting their deposit, and for sellers, if you represent the seller, to make sure you're looking out for your client's best interest as well. Okay. So let's jump into it. All right, guys. There's a lot of little changes. As far as filling out the contract, you're gonna see the same thing. Nothing changes on filling out the contract. I went through it. I looked through every line. There's no, okay, well, now we have to fill this out somewhere else or fill it different. No, as far as filling out the contract, guys, everything stays exactly the same. So if you know how to fill out the last contract, you'll have no problems filling out this contract. It's the same thing. It's going to adjust. Some things are maybe, instead of being on page 3, now it's on page 4 and things like that. But it's generally speaking, it's the same thing. On the first page, the only change that I really want to discuss is on on items that are included. So if you read on line 20 and lines 21, by the way, when I refer to a line, guys, on the left side of the contract, you see line numbers. So I use that a lot, guys, to know exactly where I'm reading. So whenever I'm talking to you guys about a contract, or I'm trying to explain something, I'll be like, hey, go to line 30 of the contract, like 50 of the contract. So in lines like 19, 20, 21, there was a few things that were added that weren't there before. And these are important, so they added doorbells. So now doorbells are part of the sale. When they say doorbells, what are they talking about? They're talking about the rings. Okay, that's becoming increasingly more popular now over the last few years. So just so you know, those rings are now included in the sale. Remember, they're attached to the property, they're fixed, so that's part of the sale. Okay. They added TV wall mounts, which was always like kind of like one of those things that, you know, everybody was like, oh, you know, does this go? Does it stay? Now the wall mounts are part of the house. It's a little weird because, you know, wall mounts technically, you know, depending on your size of your TV, that wall mount might not fit for you. But just know now, guys, at your walkthroughs, expect for the wall mount to be there. Because seller might say, well, I don't need that wall mount, I'm just gonna leave it there, you know, and buyer might say, well, I don't need that wall mount, but you know what? It's part of the sale. It's got to go with it. So any television wall mounts, mounting hardware, and then they kind of changed the wording a little bit about shutters, but it's basically the same thing. Storm shutters / storm protection items are included. So storm protection items, you know, wood panels, anything like that, those are all part of the sale. Okay. The biggest thing, guys, and it has come up, it's that Ring doorbell. You know, nobody has really, for the most part, nobody has really brought that up, but it has come up like a few times, like, oh, does it stay? Does it go? You know. Most people are taking it. Exactly. Most people are taking it. Moving forward, guys, on your closings, the Ring doorbells or anything similar to the Ring, I know there's different brands out there, all those things stay and go with the property. All right. All right, guys. So moving on next to page 2 of the contract. Line number 59. So lines 59 and 60. So guys, the way the contract has always worked is that you have something called a closing disclosure. Okay. And that closing disclosure has to, well, how to explain it? All right. So you have something called a closing, clear to close, guys. You get a clear to close from the lender. And there's always a period of time between when you get the clear to close to when you actually close, which is usually about 3 days, 72 hours. All right. This change is very minor. All it means is that if you get a clear to close, but let's say our closing date is tomorrow, and you get a clear to close today, but you're not going to be ready by tomorrow because you have to wait 72 hours for, you know, the bank to do their thing, CFPB requirements, you know, the buyer to get the closing disclosure, all that stuff. If you have to wait those 3 days, you get an automatic extension. It used to be 10 days. The only change is now it's 7 days. So that's all. Okay. So you guys got to remember that, you know, if you're about to meet that deadline for closing, but you don't have the clear to close, let's say you get the clear to close, but now you're not going to be able to close by the deadline, you get an automatic 7-day extension. It was 10 days. They changed it to 7. No big deal, but you know, it's good to know. Usually you won't even need 7 or 10 days. I mean, at the most you might need is 3, you know, typically.
So if closing is for Friday and the bank, we forgot to send out a CD on Tuesday, we send it out Wednesday, there's no, the bar's protected because it's our fault.
Yeah.
And we just let you guys know, hey, it's our fault.
Yeah, and it's an automatic extension. You don't have to write anything. You don't have to. You just have
days?
7. Up to 7, no more than 7. But usually 2 to 3 days it gets done. You know, the 7 is plenty. 10 was plenty, so I guess they just lowered it to 7, but even 7 is plenty. Okay. A minor change, guys. On line 85, the contract, whether it's assignable or not, they simply added on line 85. They added that if you don't check any box, then the contract is not assignable. That's all. Which happens all the time. A lot of agents don't put anything on there. So they added, if you don't put anything on there, the contract by default is not assignable. All right. I'm going to skip over the financing and I'm going to come back to it, but I'm going to skip over that. and I'm gonna go to line 194. Okay, so 194, guys, 196. Again, a minor change, doesn't really affect what we do, but it's good to know. And that's in regards to special assessments. Okay, special assessments are put on the property that basically the buyer or the owner pays in property taxes. And these special assessments, again, they're done by the city or the county for improvements to the neighborhood or whatever it may be. And usually these things are included in the taxes. It's very rare. You don't run into it very often. But if you do, now it simply has changed to where you always have two options. You can put that the seller's going to pay the assessment in full prior to the closing, or that the seller pays whatever is due before the closing, the buyer continues paying it after the closing. The only change to that, guys, is that now if the special assessment doesn't allow for it to be prepaid, because sometimes it doesn't, then by default the buyer just has to pay it after the closing. You can still negotiate some sort of credit in that situation. So you can say, okay, well, my buyer's gonna have to pay a special assessment for the next 2-3 years, and the taxes, it's gonna be, $5,000. So you could try to get a $5,000 credit for your closing costs to sort of offset that. So you can still negotiate some sort of credit, but it just simply can't be paid early. There's some things out there that they cannot be paid ahead of time. So then the buyer will have to, be obligated to pay it moving forward. Those are very rare, guys. We don't run into those very often. But just in case, okay. Going back up to line 174, and I get this a lot because when you come to select who's going to choose the title company, who's going to designate the closing agent, that third option that we always use on 174 here, they added right away at the beginning, buyer shall designate closing agent, okay? Which again, doesn't affect how we do things. We've always known that if you check that box, that the buyer gets to choose title, but it was added on for clarification, okay?
Oh, I see.
Yeah, it just added, that's the very first line, this, which makes sense. It's just a little more clear. Guys, everything about the inspection period, all of that stuff is the same. Nothing changes with your inspection period. The way that you opt out of the contract during your inspection period, none of that has been touched. So you can expect the same exact thing on all of that. Let's see. Guys, when it comes to force majeure, they added pandemics. So remember, guys, force majeure, we usually have to deal with that when it comes to like hurricanes and things like that. That's the most common thing we get here. But if we ever have a hurricane, there's a force majeure clause. Force majeure refers to acts of God or things you can't control, hurricanes, wars, pandemics like COVID. If something happens where everything shuts down and services are not available, services are not open, force majeure has basically like a clause there that gives you time. There's a time period. And if by any chance everything is still shut down by that time period, you can cancel the contract essentially, I'm not gonna get into the details of that time period or anything. You can read that clause. But it's there. Again, we've had to do, honestly, throughout the years, luckily we haven't had any hurricanes recently. But if it comes up in the future, I always make sure to review it with everybody to make sure we're good with that. Yeah. Guys, if you guys have any questions, feel free to put them on the chat. All right. All right, guys. So I want to talk about on page 11 about two things. Number one is on line 581. I don't know why, but I don't know why this has been there, but it kind of pops out to me a little more. I feel like it's because of the centering of the page, and and how it's shown, I feel like this might come up a little more. And it says on line 581, buyer waiver of claims. So when your client is reviewing the contract, I feel like now the way this is written, the way it's positioned on the page, it might come up a little more often. But it basically saying that buyer waives any claims against seller or against a real estate licensee in the negotiation of this contract for any damages or defects pertaining to the physical condition of the property that may exist at closing of this contract or be subsequently discovered by the buyer in the future. So basically, you might run into some buyers that say, oh, so what exactly does this mean? Like that means that something, that basically means the seller is supposed to still disclose, okay? Paragraph 10J of the contract says seller has to disclose any material defects of the property. That's their duty. There's no way for us, and you have the right to do your inspection. There's no way for me to know what could potentially be wrong with this property. There's no way for any of us to know that. So buyer waives any claim against the seller or us in case something in the future says, you know, hey, there's something wrong with this property. You never told me about it. How am I supposed to know about it? You know? And I think they added that a little more clear because I feel like a lot of buyers, they buy the house, something's wrong, and they go too quick to try to sue everybody when there's nothing we could do. Us as agents, there's nothing. How could we possibly know? It's the seller's responsibility to disclose that.
Or like if they go to resell that property, like, you know, let's say a year later after this,
Yeah.
that protects them. Like, let's say like
No.
there was something that came up in the property and like supposedly was there before they bought it and they tried to sell it and now it comes up, like
So,
that protects you.
so yes, he asked, so what if you buy a property, you go to sell it a year later, and then you figure that there was something wrong that was there before you bought it, okay? The only way you can protect yourself against that is if you can prove that the seller knew. And that you can prove that the realtor knew. So if you knew about it and you lied, and the buyer can somehow, and the new owner can somehow prove that, they can go back and somehow document that you withheld that information, then yeah, absolutely. They could still sue you. You failed to disclose something wrong with the property. And, so guys, remember, disclosure is super, super important, guys. Just whatever's wrong with the property, always put it out there. And if you don't want to know what's wrong with the property, then, tell the seller, I always tell you guys, educate the sellers on, hey, just so you know, anything that's wrong with the property, we have to disclose. Anything you tell me is wrong with this property, I have to disclose to the buyer. All right, so now tell me what's wrong with the property, and let them make that decision. So, and do a seller's disclosure, guys. Seller's disclosure, that's it. That's the end of your liability. There is, do it whenever you get a listing. Do a seller's disclosure. Seller's disclosure is basically that questionnaire, and that 100% pretty much puts you off the hook. You still have to disclose if you know something, but it pretty much puts you off the hook. All right. So I wanted to talk about that because it's kind of like the way it's positioned. I don't know, for some reason, it just kind of popped out a little more to me. But that's the way you explain that to the clients. Hey, seller still has to disclose. We have the right to do an inspection. If in the future something happens to the property, you can still go after the seller, but only if you can show proof that the seller knew. But that's why you hire a great inspector to do a great inspection all throughout. And once in a while, I mean, there's just things that could come up when you buy a house. It's the risk of buying a house. It's the risk of buying a car. Anytime, whether it's used, whether it's brand new, stuff can happen, guys. It's just part of life. So, but I wanted to mention that. A few more things, guys. They added 3 addendums that are not really addendums that we have to use all the time. There is one that I think will be commonly used, and that is in this line right here, guys. In number 19, these are all addendums that are part of the contract, okay? They're all addendums that are part of the contract, and that, depending on the scenario, you might want to use that addendum. So they added, let me see which letter it is.
Well, they changed it.
Well,
around.
they added the PACE disclosure, but hold on, that's not the one I wanted to talk about.
I like that kickoff clause.
Why don't I see it? Oh, they added letter V, sale of buyer's property. So there is an addendum now that you can, if you want to make the property contingent, if you want to make that contract, that offer you're sending contingent on the seller selling their property, there's a specific addendum for it that you can just use, and it's super clear and explains it, and you're good. Okay, in the past, we put in additional terms and we have to word it and make sure the wording is perfect. Now there's an addendum that just pretty much puts it out there for you. So if you want to put an offer contingent on the sale of the buyer's property, use that addendum. They also added the PACE disclosure, which it's the way I see the PACE disclosure, guys. So PACE, for those of you that are not sure, it's basically like government programs and things like that, that basically they're meant for you to, like, you could do your windows, you get solar panels. It's meant to make it affordable so that you can get energy efficient things for your home, energy efficient upgrades. And basically what happens is that those things are then rolled into your taxes, and then you pay it through your taxes. Okay. Now, if that's the case with your listing, if you represent a seller, you want to disclose that. But regardless, guys, you cannot close. And remind me if I'm wrong, I'm pretty sure, but you can't close with the lien of the PACE lien on there anyways.
I think that's title related.
Yeah, so title, I don't have anybody title here, but you can't close regardless. So if for whatever reason you don't get the PACE disclosure, don't worry, they're gonna let you know, hey, there's this lien here. And by the contract, seller has to already pay that. Okay, so you guys don't have to worry about that so much. The property has to be sold free and clear of any liens or anything like that. And when those people, when they basically give you the energy efficient upgrades and roll it into your taxes, they also put like a soft lien, like a second lien on your property, so that, you know, when you when you just pay that over the years through your taxes. But it does increase your taxes a lot in some cases. But again, it has to be paid off when they sell. There's no way to get through that, because when that new buyer is buying the house, that mortgage has to be the first lien. You can't have another lien that was there from the past owner. All right. Any questions so far on that? They also added a seasonal / vacation property addendum. Not gonna get into that one, guys. But you know, it's pretty self-explanatory. These are very simple, short addendums. Other than that, guys, everything is pretty much the same. We're gonna get into financing a little bit. Any questions so far? Pretty straightforward, guys. It's, you know, a lot of these changes that I talked to, very rarely do they come up as issues or something that you really need to know. But you know, it's good to know. It's good to be aware of them. It's good to, you know, always know the contract. If you're not here, guys, I gave everybody here a copy of the contract. Read through it, man. It's not rocket science. You can read through it. You can explain. Every once in a while, sure, there's a sentence in there that you might be like, oh, what exactly does that mean? But for the most part, guys, it's pretty straightforward. All right. All right, guys. So this is the part where you want to pay attention and you want to focus. And that's regarding to the financing. So let me go back here on the Zoom so you guys could follow along. So before I get into the changes, let me just kind of review what it was. Okay. So you could either buy the property cash, which in this case, you check the cash box and you don't have to worry about financing. Or like most deals, they're contingent on financing. So most deals are contingent on you getting a loan approval within a certain period of time. On line 89, by default, it's 30 days. But because our market has gotten so competitive, a lot of people say, you know what? No, I'll get you a loan approval in 21 days. Oh no, but I'll do it in 14 days. Oh, I'll do it in 10 days. Oh, I'll get the loan approval in 7 days. That's kind of what started happening. Okay. So what does that mean? That means your offer wins because you put, oh, I'm gonna give you a loan approval in 7 days. Great. You know what? This guy's not joking around. All right. I'm talking about the way it worked up until now. You can say, okay, well, here's my loan approval. Perfectly in time, 7 days. Awesome. We're moving forward. But the contract said that if for whatever reason it didn't appraise, buyer can get his deposit back and cancel the deal. So what would happen is you would say, hey, 7-day loan approval. Here's my loan approval. We're good to go. And 2 weeks later, you get an appraisal. Oh, guess what? It didn't appraise. So if you don't want to lower the price, we're just going to back out and we'll take our deposit back. Cool. That's no longer really going to be the way it goes. Okay. That's not going to be how it plays out. So the way it would work, to reiterate, you can give somebody your loan approval. Okay. And if the deal for whatever didn't close, seller gets the buyer's deposit unless it's because it didn't appraise or it's a property related condition, because that's not the buyer's fault, or because the seller defaulted, which again, that's not the buyer's fault either. But if you do give a loan approval, okay, and let's say buyer loses their job. Let's say they give the loan approval, it appraises, but buyer loses their job, or all of a sudden buyer doesn't have enough money. That's not necessarily their fault either that they lost their job, but they lose their deposit. So that's kind of the way it's been working. And it still works similar. But let's talk about how it works now. Now you're gonna have a loan approval, but now there's two parts to that financing contingency. It's no longer just loan approval, it's loan approval and appraisal. Okay, it's loan approval and the appraisal. Now, I've been saying for the last few weeks, if you've heard me talk, oh, well, it has to come together. It doesn't necessarily have to come together, but it needs to come before the deadline. Okay? If a lender gives you a loan approval, but the loan approval still says that it's conditioned, okay? And before I move forward, let me explain what the loan approval is, guys, for those that don't know. The loan approval is basically a letter that the bank gives the buyer after they've reviewed enough information, they reviewed your income, they review your assets, they looked at your credit, they're like, all right, we've reviewed enough information that you're pretty much good for this loan. Still pending a couple of things. If one of those things pending a lot of times would be the appraisal, you can no longer do that. Okay, if you represent the buyer and you give the listing agent a loan approval, but that loan approval still says on there that it is contingent on the property appraising, it's not considered a loan approval. It's like you didn't even give them the loan approval. So that's the way the contract says it now. It's not a loan approval. Okay, like it's just not. The bank might say it might be a loan approval to the bank, but for the contract purposes in the state of Florida, it's not a loan approval.
So we can give a loan approval letter, and that really doesn't mean that you're all in yet, right? We
Yeah.
still need to provide the appraisal.
Correct.
Right? So like, because now I'm like, hey, don't send the loan approval unless, we have, certain things,
Right.
file already, but.
Right. So
But it's not contingent anymore on appraisal.
it cannot. It's not considered a loan approval. It cannot.
So the
you're not off the hook
buyer will lose deposit.
Mhm.
Yeah, you're not off the hook yet.
Exactly. That it's not even considered a loan approval. What's going to happen is you guys, loan officers are not going to give you a loan approval probably until they have the appraisal.
So
That's
what
probably
happens to the extension addendum?
Mhm.
Like the extension addendum, like for example, like on the deal that I've been working with.
you can still do the extension.
With Angelo, every time I send an extension, I extend the loan.
Exactly.
too.
Smart, super smart.
Yeah.
That's how you're protecting your client because it's still contingent on that loan approval. Okay. But you have to know that. Have you already given a loan approval?
No.
Okay, smart. Because if you already gave the loan approval, it's pointless. You already gave it. You have to close, or else your buyer loses a deposit unless it didn't appraise or it's a seller or it's the seller default or or
never given.
yeah.
No loan approval.
So remember that, guys. It has to be the appraisal is basically like the loan approval now. So now you can't say, hey, here's, 10 days after being on the contract, here's my loan approval. And then come back day 20 something and say, oh, but it didn't appraise. So I'm gonna back out of this contract if you don't lower the price. Can't do that anymore.
So what would be the? best
Within
thing
the
to do?
loan approval period, you have to already know what it's gonna appraise. Let's talk a scenario, okay? Pay attention to this. This is probably gonna start happening after November 1st. You get a loan approval, or let's say you just haven't gotten the loan approval, but everything's looking good. Angela's like, yo, everything's perfect, but we still haven't gotten that appraisal. And I'm like, and let's just say you put 15 days for loan approval. As you're approaching those 15 days, let's say it's day 14, I'm like, Angela, do we have appraisal? No, we still don't have it. I have to make a decision at that point. Do I back out right now, or I extend the financing period? Because if I keep moving forward after the 15 days, it is treated as if it's a cash deal. The financing contingency is not there no more.
So let's say on the day 14, I tell you, hey, Victor, yeah, internally, we have an approval with conditions. And one of them is obviously gonna be, part of the appraisal, right? But if we send it to the seller, the listing agent, the loan approval, hey, we have loan approval, but we're still pending appraisal. Are we all in there? No. So it's
No.
good to show good faith to say.
We're not all in there. I see what you're saying. It's not
good
considered.
faith to show that.
There's a sentence in there. I read it. It doesn't. If you provide a loan approval without an appraisal, it's not considered a loan approval.
Right, so it's good faith to say, hey,
Sure.
we need 5 more days because the appraisal's taking whatever, the guys and, went to the hospital or whatever.
That's a good way to put it, guys. When you provide that loan approval, it's like you're all in, like you're putting all your chips on the table. But if you provide a loan approval that still says contingent on appraisal, you're not all in because it's not considered a loan approval anymore.
Just be careful because
Or
it's a
don't
new round for
provide the loan approval.
or that.
Or just don't provide the loan approval.
But
Exactly.
if push comes to shove, then you gotta
Guys, another great thing about this contract that they changed is that you do not have to provide the loan approval. You don't have to provide it until the last day. You know what I mean?
No, you're gonna have to get it early.
You don't have to give them to them early. Before you did, the contract says the minute you get loan approval, you have to give it to the seller. Now the contract doesn't say that anymore. So you could sort of play it out. Let me give you a scenario. You get under contract, your buyer's going through the loan process. Okay. The loan, maybe you get a loan approval, but there's some, I like to call them like little, what do we call them? Like red flag conditions or little like, I don't know, like little iffy conditions. Like, ooh, this one's got me worried. But let's say your appraisal comes back good. Let's say, everything else is fine, but you have that condition that's like, that one worries me, man. We might not be able to close because of this issue. You don't have to give that loan approval. You just hang on to it. And by your deadline, make the decision if you want to risk. If that condition still hasn't been cleared up, you can make the decision. So I would say, hey, Mr. Buyer, we're at your financing deadline. Today's the last day. The seller's not willing to extend it. We have this condition about the IRS. I always bring up IRS because those are apparently like a pain in the ass. You have this condition with the IRS. We're not sure if it's going to work in our favor. So to protect your deposit, we can back out right now, or we could take the chance that everything will come back good with the IRS and we can move forward. But just know if we move forward and it doesn't work out with the IRS, you lose your deposit.
So we might see contracts with lower deposits, just in case.
Guys, you shouldn't be putting more than like $5,000-$10,000 in deposits regardless.
But I'm saying with these changes, they're probably gonna start
Maybe.
coming in smaller.
Maybe.
Yeah, because now with like how competitive the market is, people are putting, a ridiculous amount of deposit
Yeah.
to make their offer stronger, but you're not gonna be seeing that anymore.
Yeah, you're not gonna risk $20,000.
So the contract is contingent upon within, before we would put, 5 days, 7 days. Or we put 15 days, sorry.
For the loan approval period?
Yeah, for the loan approval period. So
Guys, you guys should still be putting between 15 and 21. You need to talk to your lenders and say, by when can you get this appraisal? Because now it's got to be part of the loan approval. And if they tell you, well, I can have an appraisal by 15 days, then sure, then be like, all right, I'll put 15 days for my loan approval
Are
period.
we still sending over the appraisal contingency and putting a date on that too? Are we gonna?
If you want to, the appraisal contingency can still be used.
So if I would put 15 days on this, I gotta put 15 days on the appraisal.
Correct.
What
But the
happens if I
appraisal
put 15
contingency
and
doesn't
20?
beat this out.
It doesn't do that.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
So the appraisal contingency is worthless now, basically.
As far as saving your ass,
Yeah.
Uh, so-
It doesn't supersede this. Neither does the FHA addendum. The FHA addendum got a little different wording too.
What about if you do it reverse? If you put 20 here and 15 on the appraisal contingency? That matter?
Yeah, sure. But at that point, if it doesn't appraise, you can use either one to
Honestly,
get out.
I don't even see a point of using the appraisal contingency if everything is.
Guys, I've always tell you guys, I don't use the appraisal contingency addendum. I know some people use it and they like it, but I've always told you guys that there's no need to do it. There's never a need.
I mean,
And even with this change,
But
there's still no necessarily a need to do it.
So it shouldn't even matter to check the box for appraisal contingency then.
No, you don't need the appraisal contingency.
Check it.
It's there, you can use it. The appraisal contingency addendum just makes it super clear that we want this to be contingent on appraisal, but it's already has to be contingent on appraisal. If it doesn't appraise, you don't meet the loan terms that you apply to, and then you're able to back out. Simple as that.
Si ya ha mandado
I think the best.
a la casa de títulos, debe haber mandado usted también.
Yeah, you still put the same 21, whatever you're putting now, you want to put that, but you got to make sure your appraisal. Some of these lenders, so another reason why they made this change, guys, is I don't know if you remember last year, appraisals were
Porque ella le
taking
haga.
like a long time. Was it last year or like early this year?
Earlier this year.
It's still happening now.
Well, it's still happening now with some lenders, I guess, not everybody. How long are you guys taking to do appraisals, Angelo?
Porque ese es un enredo.
How long is Elite taking more or less?
It's not even elite, it's the people. They
Well, how long do they
put a
take?
bid, 14
Monday.
days.
14 days. So some people are doing 10 for, no, trust
Yeah,
me, we
it's
have a
14
deal
days
right now.
'cause the
We have
guy
a
had
deal right
COVID.
now where it's been 30 days and the appraiser's not even in yet.
On
So
the
it
first-
depends on the lender, guys.
Claro,
You gotta
claro.
talk to your lender.
Remember my first deal, and that one took like 3 weeks.
Right.
Almost
But in
more.
some cases, I've had it back in like 5 days.
Bueno, ahorita, como ya pasó la inspección, la
So,
appraisal, ya es otro
They
cuento.
probably use the same guys you, EWM and the other one.
So when.
El appraisal, ¿cuántos días tuvieron ellos?
Brokers have, they go with
AMCs.
AMCs,
Yeah,
appraisal management companies,
yeah.
and then typically they take a.
They take a bid, they have to do a bid, and then the bid takes like 2 days, and then they give you a commitment, they give you an update, and then it starts the process.
El
So,
appraisal,
Okay, so the guy
But
had
whatever,
COVID.
Eso hay que
but
ver,
whatever you're
porque
putting
es lo
now,
que pide
you can
solamente
still
para
put it.
decir,
And remember, guys, you could always extend the financing period. You could always say, hey, I need more time. And if the seller wants to do it, great. If they don't want to do it, then you got to make that decision with the buyer. Do we want to risk this and, potentially risk your deposit moving forward? Or do we just cancel this right now and back out? That's pretty much the way to think about it, guys. You get your loan approval, everything's great. You give it to them, you close, everything's good, it appraises, everything is good. If there's potential issues that you feel like we might not close, or then you gotta back out before that loan approval period, that financing contingency period ends. You gotta back out, otherwise you're risking your client's deposits.
An email from the real estate agent saying, I think we talked to the hotline one time, but I don't know what this new contract like. An email stating, hello, listing agent, my buyer is unable to. loan."
Ajá. A la Yaret.
They don't need the letter, they don't need the conditions.
Nope.
So an email is sufficient enough.
An email is sufficient, guys. I know we like to ask for denial letters, but the last contract and this contract read it very well. No denial letters needed. All you have to do is provide written notice to the listing agent that you have not been able to obtain loan approval.
That's it.
That's it. It stops there.
Stops there. And then you gotta send the cancellation.
Now, I do want to be clear that the contract does say that the seller has the right to talk to the mortgage and title company to find out what the status of the loan approval is. So if you're trying to get slick and say, oh, we got the loan approval, let's say I didn't get it, the seller can't
Yeah, just
verify
communicate.
that.
Just communicate.
Even
Oh,
said
really?
in this
Okay.
contract specifically, with that extra line that they added, even if they do get the loan commitment, and for some, whatever
Que
reason.
nosotros como agente, que creo que hay que pedir algo a la casa de títulos. A la casa de títulos.
Are you talking about what we were talking about this morning? Yeah, well, I'll get to that.
I thought you were talking about that.
No, not yet. That's a little different. So yeah, you just know that, guys, that the seller does have the right to talk to the lender simply about the status, like what's going on with the loan process, what's going on with the title process. They are allowed to do that. Okay. Now there's a scenario, guys, that happens all the time. Okay. It shouldn't happen in your deals, but it happens. And that is, buyer starts the loan process. Buyer gets a loan approval or doesn't get the loan approval, one of those. Your financing deadline approaches and passes, and nobody says anything. Communication is zip. Okay? When that happens, okay, hopefully it doesn't happen in your deals, but if you don't communicate anything, the deal is treated as if you did get the loan approval and the appraisal, and it moves forward. So you can't come back later and say, oh, wait, it didn't appraise. Oh, wait, I didn't get my loan approval. You didn't say anything. So we just moved forward as if it did. But I didn't get the appraisal. Well, too bad. You lose your deposit now. You should have said something.
Dice que cuando esto, por
So
ejemplo,
if nobody, there's no communication and the deadline passes,
si es que
you
ya pasó,
move forward as if you did get the loan approval and you did get the appraisal. It's treated as such.
no tengo la aprobación del
That
préstamo.
shouldn't be happening, guys, but it does happen once in a while. Stay on top of your deals, know your deadlines, your dates. Stay on top of that. Use a transaction coordinator, whatever it is you got to do to stay on top of those deadlines. Okay, but it is treated as such. Now there is a little different thing here, and this part is gonna be, I kind of saved this for last, because it's a little tricky to understand. Hopefully you guys, I can explain it well, but it's what Mike was sort of talking about before. Okay, if you provided a loan approval, okay, and you didn't close, you lost your deposit, unless it's because it didn't appraise or a property related condition or the seller's fault. Okay. Now, if you provide a loan approval, which for the purposes of this conversation, the loan approval includes the appraisal and everything is great. If you provide that loan approval, you can still back out potentially during the loan approval period later on. So let me explain the scenario. Let's say you got a 21-day loan approval period. By day 14, you got your loan approval, you got your appraisal. Hey, we're good. Here you go. Let's just say you gave it early for whatever reason. Here you go. And then day 21 comes, you're still on the deadline. Day 21 comes and your lender says, hey, you know, I'm not going to be able to clear this condition with something with your sister, you own a house with her, whatever random thing could happen. You can now still back out because of that, as long as you're within the loan approval period.
So you give it early, but you still.
And that's something that a lot of buyer agents are not going to realize. So don't tell them if you represent the seller. But you know, but you could.
That's a fucking insane.
Yeah.
Well, that's what the lady did.
Because we're so used to giving you a loan approval and just saying, all right, we're good. Like if I don't close, I lose my deposit, unless it's because it didn't appraise, seller default, properly related condition. Now within that loan approval, even after you already gave it, even after you put all your chips on the table, you can still come back and say, oh, wait, I didn't get approved, as long as you're still within that loan approval period. But here's the key. Whatever the reason is, has to have been on that loan commitment. So that loan commitment, guys, that loan approval, so guys, I'm sorry, sometimes I call it loan commitment, loan approval, it's the same thing. It's just loan commitment is like old school. We always call it a loan commitment. Loan commitment, loan approval, same thing. When you get it, it's gonna have conditions there. It'll say, you've been approved for this loan, for this house at this amount, but it's contingent on you getting homeowners insurance. It's contingent on us verifying the money that you say you have in X savings account. You know, it's contingent on us getting your 4506T from the IRS. It's contingent on, you know, us verifying that your sister pays the mortgage on that investment property you have. You know, it's just contingent on certain things. So as long as one of those things are done, if one of those things that is contingent on, if you're not able to satisfy those things within the loan approval period, even after you already gave the loan approval, you can back out. So it's a good little thing to kind of know to protect your client in case. To summarize it, guys, you got to make sure you're good by your loan approval period or your buyer's deposit is at stake. I do it all the time, guys. Before the loan approval period ends, I call the lender, even if everything seems great, even if appraisal was good. Hey, the financing deadline is here. Are we gonna be okay? Everything good? And if the loan officer tells you, hey, we're good, then you take that. You know, it is what it is. You know, you did what you were supposed to do. I had a deal recently where the loan officer said, yeah, we're good. And then we weren't good. A week before the closing, they said, oh, there's an issue. You know, and now the buyer's deposit's at risk. So we're trying to hopefully save it. But I reached out. Hey, I just want to make sure everything is good. The deadline is today. If we need to back out, we need to back out now. Everything's good, solid. Everything's 100% solid. All right, good. Moving forward. So you gotta take that as and how they say it. Any questions so far about this guy? Another little minor detail is that the loan approval, not only does it have to not be contingent on, like it can't be conditioned on the property appraising. It also cannot be conditioned on the buyer selling another property unless you use that addendum that we talked about earlier. So that's another little extra thing there, which does happen in our market often right now. So I wanted to mention that. So a loan approval is not considered a loan approval if it doesn't have if it's contingent on appraisal and if it's contingent on the buyer selling their other property, unless you did the addendum that says that it is going to be contingent on that.
Question on the kickoff clause, that's in favor of the seller, correct?
What kickoff clause? Where do you see that?
Addendum,
Yeah, that one's a nice little nugget
on the
there.
11.
But that's not new. That's always been there.
Yeah, I never noticed it, but that's in favor of the seller, correct?
Yeah, that gives the chance. We don't really use that addendum very often. Like I've never used it personally. But yeah, I think it does give the seller the option to take another offer if another offer better comes in or something like that. Yeah, but that's a very rare addendum, and we don't use it because as a buyer, I wouldn't recommend you getting into this contract and doing all this stuff when the seller can just get out, later on.
If you get somebody to sign it, that's great. But
Right. I got something on the chat. Not sure if it's a question, but let's see. Oh,
Well, it
no,
was
never
just
mind.
someone that needed to use their microphone.
Oh, yeah. So, guys, that's the financing. That's kind of pretty much the gist of it. Any other questions? You guys want to add anything? The lenders in the room?
I wouldn't advise sending, even if we have loan approval, I wouldn't advise sending in the loan approval letter.
Until you have-
Exactly. So best practice, guys, even if you do get the loan approval well before your loan approval period, hold on to it. Hold on to it to the last minute, just in case something goes wrong. Just hold on to it. Best practice. So if the listing agent's like, hey, did you get the loan approval? I don't know. We're still waiting on it. It's cool.
It's tough though, because to be competitive, right now, you do have to give a slim, some time frame.
Right.
So if it includes the appraisal and stuff like that, I think this kind of benefits the buyer in the sense that even if you do give the loan commitment with the appraisal, you still have an out.
Mhm.
4506T, the IRS hasn't processed taxes all year. So if technically you can't get that from the IRS,
Right.
you are not liable. So there's still protection there as long as it's within that specific time frame of the loan commitment period. So I think it helps the seller in the fact that you're not giving a loan commitment without the appraisal in, gives them a little bit more comfortability. But it helps the buyer kind of protect themselves if for whatever reason they did give that in. Something comes up on the conditions that they need to provide that they can't.
Yeah.
To be able to,
100%. And guys, I think we'll as we start doing transactions and as we start doing deals, we'll start figuring out our best practices more with this new way of financing. But I think it's gonna be straightforward, man. Like right now, if I'm an agent, I'm looking to make sure I'm working with lenders that can get that appraisal fast. If you're still taking 3 to 4 weeks to get an appraisal, I can't work. I would never work with you. It's too much. Takes too long. Because I can't put 3 to 4 weeks for a loan approval period. At the most, I can put 3 weeks, but that's 21 days. I can't do any more than that. That's too. Anything. The market is too competitive. We have to put the best offers with the best terms possible for the seller, and at the same time protect our buyers. So I feel like 21 days right now is like that sweet spot where I'm giving you 21 days that I'm gonna get this loan, but I'm still giving enough time to protect my buyer.
So it seems like the best option would be to order an appraisal as soon as you go on the contract.
Yeah. Within the first 5 days, right?
Like you gotta do it like as soon as
Day.
As soon as you go on the
disclose,
contract.
if the loan officer discloses that same day, you wanna send the appraisal link at the same time.
And for the last deal we did, we had to do that. She wrote it on the contract. She wrote pretty much the same shit that's here now.
So don't
She
drag,
wrote it on there.
because too many lenders out there, guys, drag their feet. Don't order appraisal. I had one of our agents was working with somebody that didn't order an appraisal for 3 weeks. So I'm like, dude,
Oh.
Jesus Christ.
3 weeks. Guess the lender.
Angelo? No, just kidding.
PRG.
What a chat.
For sure, PRMG.
Yeah, that was PRM.
Jesus. And you guys work together?
I'm not a fan of PRMG, guys. I know not all their loan officers are bad, but
The good ones.
they
just-
cause me too many problems.
Yeah. What
That's
company
it.
is it?
PRG.
PRMG.
They've got some good loan officers, yeah, it's just the system.
Yeah. Their systems. All right, guys. So that's pretty much it about the contract. Any other questions? Anything else at all? All right. Guys, I'm gonna put this recording up on the channel. I do want to keep you guys here a little longer because I want to kind of give you a little bit of a preview of what I'm working on for the training for next week. So if you guys want to stay on the chat, feel free to stay on the chat on the Zoom. I want to talk a little bit about some of the things that we're working on. So just 10-15 minutes. So if you want to stay and kind of listen to it and see what we got working on, that'd be great. Let's see. All right, guys. So
Those real numbers.
of course, are they real numbers? Are they? I'll do fake numbers.
I don't know if that's one.
They might not be 100% accurate, but they're in the ballpark. They're in the ballpark because the transfer of the data was a little rough. Guys, so we're gonna be moving on from Brokerman officially, like probably like starting now November 1st, and we're gonna start using a different system. But there's a reason for this change, and the change wasn't simply because I want to use a different place to manage our transactions. As you know, Brokerman is where we manage our deals. One of the most important things about this business too, guys, and it comes up, it's documentation. We have to document our transactions. I, as an agent, I always used to have a little folder on my computer with all the documents. My broker would keep it, but I would always have it in a little folder, everything, okay? Brokerman is where we use now. We could use it for e-signature as well, but the main purpose of it is to hold our transactions. Moving forward, we're going to be using this program called CSoup. Everybody's going to have their own account. And funny story, the reason I'm doing this is because Joey was complaining that Brokerman didn't show his numbers. He was like, hey, I set these goals on Brokerman, but like the numbers aren't right and my sales aren't right. And why is it that, like I see, I don't know, it's just not popping off. And then I called Brokerman and Brokerman couldn't help me. And I'm like, all right, guys, that's it. It's over. Like, I'm done. Like, you can't solve my problem. Like, I need to find something else that can solve it. So I wanted to, one of the things that as a broker and as even as an agent over time has been, is struggling to keep up with everybody's goals, because everybody has different goals, and not just keeping up with them, but holding you accountable to those goals. I've never been a broker that's going to be like on top of you, like, hey, are you doing this? Are you doing that? Like, I never did that. Why? Because I was never an agent that liked for a broker to be on my ass about things. So when I became a broker, I'm not going to be something that I didn't like. And that's kind of like my philosophy has always been, That being said, I realized that holding people accountable and holding people to their goals, it's not necessarily being a pain in the ass. I think it's kind of like showing you love in a way, because it's showing you like that I really care, that I want you to meet those goals, and I want you to do those things that you're supposed to do, and I want you to grow your business. But how do I keep up with your goals, everybody's goals? And how do I keep up? What are you doing on a day-to-day basis? How do I keep up what you're doing on a day-to-day basis? What do you do in the line? Who did you do this? It's tough. It's a challenge. It's a big challenge. So I started asking around, like, this is what I want to do. Is there some place where I can do this? Okay. And I came up on this platform. So one of the first things you'll notice about this platform is right away, guys. And you'll see it as well when you guys log on. And some of you already have accounts because I've given you some access. But right away, guys, it's going to show you your volume that you close. It'll always show it forever. But at least on your dashboard, it's going to show you, the closed volume, closed units, everything for 2021. Okay. When you start recording these things, it's going to show you how many buyer appointments have you set, how many did you meet, how many buyers did you sign, how many did you get them under contract. And same thing with sellers. How many listing appointments? How many listings did you sign? How many listings did you get under contract? Conversations, which is something that I'm going to be talking a lot about, is how many conversations did you have? Real estate guys, remember, it's all about contact. It's all about sport. Angelo, how many people have you talked to so far today? Dollar producing conversations that are to drive your business. A few? None?
I should keep track of that. Today.
But how many have you had some? At least one?
Yeah, I don't know. It's 5 or 6. Anyway.
Okay, there you go. It's all about conversing, being in contact with people, talking to people. How many calls are you making? How many posts did you do on social media? How many people have you text? How many email blasts did you send? How many trainings did you attend? Okay, so how can we keep up with all this? Down here too, guys, it also has we're gonna be able to see everybody's closed units, everybody's volume, what they're doing. So you could already see. Don't freak out if the number's not 100% accurate. If it's not accurate, let me know and we'll fix it. But you can see the amount closed units, amount of closed volume. I'm still learning the platform, so I think it's going to show pretty much everybody on the list. So it'll show everybody where everybody's at, and it's going to rank everybody. So if you don't want to be at the bottom of the rankings, sell some houses. You have to work. You have to hustle. Okay, essentially. Now, there's activities that you're going to be able to do. And again, I'm going to do a closer training on this. I'm just kind of giving you a preview, but I'm going to do this probably next week, probably Tuesday or Wednesday. I'll let you guys know. But right here, you have activities every day that you can record. So what are these activities? And I'll get more specific on what they mean and what you're supposed to do. Text messages, how many hours did you prospect? How many listing showings? How many buyer showings? How many thank you cards did you send out? How many reviews did you get today? Did you knock on doors? Did you do any pop buys? Did you attend a training? I even have exercise there. Did you do open house? How many offers did you write? Did you do lunch with a referral source? So these are activities that I want you guys to make sure you're doing to grow your business. And I'm gonna add more to it, and I'm gonna be a little more specific. But, you know, sending an email blast, did you add contacts to the CRM? How many buyers did you have a consultation with? These are all things that we'll be able to track. I want to really sit down with everybody and go over what you want your goals to be, because depending on what you want your goals to be, I can tell you how many of these things you need to make sure you're doing. And it all really starts with conversations, talking to people, reaching out to people. Are you texting people? Are you sending a Facebook DM or Instagram DM? Are you posting on social media? All these are things that drive business to you. Okay? So I want you to be able to, so every day, and by the way, there's an app, and every day the app at 5 p.m. is going to remind you, put your numbers for the day. What have you done today? Put it in. Okay? So the whole point is, everybody's going to talk about their goals. We're all going to know what it is that we want to accomplish. What are the numbers? What do we have to do to get there? And everybody's going to be able to see what everybody else is doing and what the activities are doing. I'm going to plan, for now, I don't know. I want to do different things for the people who do it. For now, my first idea popped into my head. I want to do like a monthly hustlers lunch, which will be a mastermind among just the agents who actually go ahead and record and put their activities in the platform. The reality is there's going to be some agents that just don't do it. But for those of you who do it, those of you who are committed, those of you who want to keep track of this and keep track of the business that you're doing, we'll do a hustlers lunch every month. And we'll be a mastermind with me and maybe some special guests, and we'll talk real estate, and we'll have a great lunch at a nice place. And hopefully that motivates you a little extra to be able to do it. And some of you guys that are competitive, that want to be number one, that want to be at the top, everybody's going to be able to see where your ranking is. What are you doing? How many units have you closed? What's your volume in the year so far? If you're new, it's okay. You're going to be at 0, but don't worry, that'll change. So you're going to be able to not just, so this is not just to put your transactions and request your CDAs for closing. This is also going to be to, again, keep track of your volume, keep track of your goals, and keep track of your activities. So over here, you're going to be able to go on, and let's just say, like Angelo said, you know, he had 5 conversations. So he's going to be able to go, you know what, today I had 5 conversations. You put 5, it automatically just records. Okay, let's say, you know, I wrote 1 offer. I did work out today. I worked out this morning. I wrote, you know, 5 thank you cards. Let's say, you know, I always tell people, write thank you cards for your people who close, people who refer you business. And, you know, I added, you know, 10 people to my CRM. Boom, all changes are saved. And there you go.
And a conversation.
And now as you go ahead, what you said?
A conversation is not calling your buddy, hey, what's up, man?
Exactly, you know, prospecting conversations.
Money
Exactly.
calls.
Money calls.
Sales producing activity.
Sales project, calling people to try to get business. It's not, yeah, obviously it's not talking to your buddy about the game last night or whatever, you know. So you're gonna be able to come here and record those. And I'll show you guys next week to add transaction. I'm gonna, it's very simple, guys. Add all the details. It's similar to Brokerman. You add all the information on the transaction, you add the documents. So there's another side to that. But the main thing I really wanted to share with you guys was the whole part about you know, adding those activities that you're supposed to be doing, making sure you're doing them, making sure you're tracking them. And this is the way that my best way that I can show you love and make life easier on me too, is let's meet up. Let's talk about your goals. What is it that you want to accomplish? There's also a goal setting tool in here. So that way you're going to know how close you are to your goals. I haven't used that part yet, but I'll have it ready by next week. But the idea, let it load up. Oh, that's lagging a little bit. But the idea is, as you're completing your sales and you're keeping track of every number, how much volume have you sold, how many deals have you done in units, it shows you like how close you are to the goal that you're trying to get to. Guys, you might have different goals. Some people, for some agents, your goal is, I want to sell, you know, 6 houses this year. That's great. All right, well, let's make sure we're doing what we're supposed to. I want to sell 30 houses this year. Great. you know, so everybody's gonna have different goals. Everybody's gonna have different, you know, everybody's gonna have different activities and different things that they're gonna want to do. Yeah, I don't know if it's the internet or something that's acting up, but well, it's not the internet because Zoom. But oh, I gotta figure out how to fix this task. Sorry guys, I think I broke it. So starting between today and tomorrow, everybody's gonna get a login account, so you guys can start logging into this. Next week, I'm gonna see if I'm gonna either do it Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. I'll see, but we'll do a training and we'll kind of talk about goal setting. I want to have this conversation, especially right now, guys. The way I've always said it is, you know, 2022 starts, you know, now. Like it doesn't start next year finally loaded up. But you see how I added 5 conversations and I have 15. And if you have your goals, this little bar will show you like where you are in your goals. So it'll track that for you. So yeah, guys. So I want to make sure that we're having these goals. We know what we're doing. We're gonna have that monthly hustlers lunch. Whoever takes part of this and whoever records, and those lunches will be great because you'll talk with other people who are doing the same thing and are doing their goals, and you can see the progress. And once you start seeing, you'll start seeing that the people who are selling more real estate, it correlates that they're doing more of these activities. It's as simple as that. You'll see that right away. So it's just a matter, do you want to be part of that? Or do you want to be, you know, somebody that doesn't sell many houses? You know, simple as that. So any questions about that? What do you guys think?
It was great.
You like it?
Yeah.
Good. I think it's gonna be great. I love the platform. I wish I would have known about it way sooner. But it's gonna be cool. Also, guys, another thing that's pretty cool is that we could do like challenges and things like that. So we could do like a challenge of, you know, who gets the most deal under contract this month, or who makes the most phone calls, or who knocks on the most doors, or who sends the most email blasts. So we got challenges on there. We got like, you know, things like that. So I'll create things like that to kind of motivate everybody to like, hey, if you know, get number 1 on the challenge, you know, you get, I don't know, you get an iPad, or you get, you know, something, make it something worthwhile, make it fun, make it competitive. So there's a platform I think we're going to be a lot on. I'm going to show it next week. We'll get on everybody's accounts. We'll set the goal. We'll download the app. The app is key because the app is going to remind you every day, hey, put your numbers in. You'll get that notification every day at 5 p.m. Record what have you done today. And now, guys, what's great for me as a broker is that if you ever come up to me and you say, hey, Vic, you know what? I've been struggling a little bit. Maybe I haven't got a deal under contract. I'm going to be like, all right, well, let me see what you've been doing. It's as simple as that. Let me, well, have you been doing the activities you're supposed to be doing? And we'll be able to track that. Super simple. And guys, you cannot do all these things and not succeed. Like you just can't.
That should be required.
Give me an example, guys. Give me an example. Give me an example of somebody who does all the things they're supposed to do. Do you guys have a loan officer at Highlands that does all these things and doesn't succeed? Huh? Give me one. Maybe you do.
He's an example. You got lucky. He didn't
The only ones who probably don't have to do all this is if you've been in the business already like 20 years and business just comes your way without you having to do anything.
But it's always good to keep track of like what the heck you're doing, you know?
Yes.
You have to.
Good. Good.
You gotta do it.
Good. I'm glad we're in agreement to that. So yeah, guys, I just want to give you guys a little quick preview of that. Appreciate you guys staying on the Zoom. If you have any questions, anything at all, let me know. Reach out to me. I'm gonna be sending everybody's accounts for this between today and tomorrow. So look out for that email. And then next week, we'll do the training. Again, I'm gonna shoot for Tuesday, but don't hold me to that. I'll let you guys know over the weekend. And we'll go dive deeper into this and we'll get the ball rolling with this so we could end the last 2 months of the year everybody knows what their goals for the next year are. Everybody knows what the activities that they're supposed to be doing, and we can work on them. Okay?
And everything from brokerman will just transfer over?
Yep.
All right, cool.
Yep, if you log in, it should already be there.
Yeah, it's already there.
All right, guys. I'm gonna wrap up the Zoom, okay? And I'm gonna post this on the Instagram later. I mean, on the WhatsApp.
Wait, did you see Annie's question?
Oh, no. What she asked?
For the challenges, can people add conversations and things they have done that's a lie?
Okay, good question.
I
Good
mean,
question,
you
Annie.
wanna lie to yourself?
Good question,
Okay.
Annie. So, yes, can you make stuff up? Can you lie? How can I know that you really did?
We'll never
I
know.
can't,
How would
okay?
you know? They'll never
but I
know.
like to imagine that everybody here is honest and is, you know, I like to think everybody in the brokerage is a person of high character, and we're not gonna have that issue. But you know what? If you're doing that too, Annie, if somebody does that, they're lying to themselves, and you're wasting your own time. You're wasting everybody's time. You're wasting your time, and you're just not going to be seeing the results because you're lying about what you're doing. So, yeah, I like to, but it is possible, Annie. I can't control that. That was a great question, though, because I thought about that too. That's how I see that.
I
Hey,
made 10
if they
phone
get
calls.
caught, they should pay for lunch.
Yeah, but it's just not going to
If they
reflect
get caught,
in
I'll
your
get
results.
caught, they
You're
have
just
to
not
pay
going to
for
see it in
lunch.
your
If
results.
they get caught, I'll deactivate them.
No, you bring them on, you bring them on, and you're like, yeah, look, you won. And then at the end, you're like, nah, bro, you cheated.
All right, guys. I'll see you guys around. If you guys, some of you that might be coming to the happy hour tomorrow, please make it. It's gonna be amazing. It's gonna be a very exotic place. I'm looking forward to it. So I'll see you guys there
Everybody
All right,
keeps
guys.
saying that, exotic.
because it's exótico.